Welcome, everyone, once again to the most highest rated show on all of WrestleNet Radio. If you smell what the arch. I'm your host, Archie Mitchell. We have a ton to talk about tonight. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. We have got so many different things going on in the wrestling world that I don't know where to start first because we had two pay-per-views this past weekend, plus a really decent episode of AEW Dynamite. And along with all the releases, and apparently somebody came back tonight on NXT. So we're going to go ahead and start things off by you cracking open your favorite frosty beverage and you listening to me spew my venom, my hate, and my love for the professional wrestling world with some quick hits. So, first thing on the agenda, AEW has signed the son of Arn Anderson, the enforcer, and his name is Brock Anderson. And I have to say, when I heard about it as they were talking about it on AEW, I was thrilled. I was enthralled. I was excited. And then this 160-pound kid walks out. And I don't want to say kid in a bad way. You know, he's probably about a 30-something-year-old man, but he didn't look like an enforcer. He looked like an Anderson, but like a far distant relative of an Anderson. Uh, C.W. Anderson looked more like an Anderson, and he didn't even own the damn name. He just used it. And of course, Cody Rhodes was involved in the announcement, and apparently he and Brock are going to team next week against QT Marshall and Anthony Ogogo. I hope that Brock Anderson does an amazing job. I mean, that double leg takedown QT Marshall was phenomenal. So I mean, he apparently can wrestle, but we've just got to wait and see if he's got that killer instinct, old man. Second, release stars cannot sign autographs in their old names, their character names. For instance, if you bump into Aleister Black, aka Tommy End, he will not sign under the name Aleister Black. He will be signing under Tommy End because the WWE will not allow him. Same goes for guys like Samoa Joe, who we'll get to in a minute, and other stars like Lana and I guess Miro, who used to be Rusev. You cannot ask them to sign in their former name. And I guess this is WWE's way of retaining the character and I guess punishing them as well. You know, you're not going to make money off of our name anymore, off of the name that we gave you. It's a little ridiculous. I mean, I'd hate to have my mom and dad tell me one day, look, we named you Archie. You're not allowed to use that name anymore. Because that's kind of the way that it goes. Vince McMahon gives them this name, and then he copyrights it and does whatever he can. He puts in, you know, for to own it, and then he can very easily take it away from them. So, a little ridiculous, a little childish on Vince's part, but also it may be these wrestlers just not wanting to use that name anymore as well. I don't know for sure, but it is a little bit crazy, ridiculous. And I guess next they're going to say that these guys can't sign elites or WWE belts or anything that has to do with the company. Guess we just have to wait and see what happens. Third on the docket is AEW Dynamite as a whole. I did not want to review the whole show. There was a lot going on. But if you did not watch AEW, tune in to see the interaction between Kenny Omega and Jungle Boy. Tune in to see the six-man tag match between Eddie Kingston, Pac, and Pentagon versus the Young Bucks and Brandon Cutler. Brandon Cutler should be a mid-card guy. He actually does do a lot of great moves and actually has a lot of incredible moves in his repertoire. But I guess they're, you know, making him the Young Bucks lucky. That's fine. The women's match that was on the show was not bad as well. Nyla Rose once again murdering someone, but I guess that's good because we're leading into a match with Britt Baker, which should be phenomenal. See those two go at it. Only mention of El Idolo Andrade was that Jim Ross is going to interview him again next week. So we'll hear a little more in depth. Does anybody find it odd that one of the major gripes with Andrade was that he did not speak English, and then he cut his entire promo on AEW in pure English, except for when he said thank you to Vicky. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see if he does his interview with JR in English as well. I look at it as he's kind of giving Vince McMahon the middle finger. You know, you're saying I don't speak English well, and then here I am talking great. You know, I'm actually making sense, and the fans understand me. Um, you know, there were a couple of other good matches on the show. AEW Dynamite was really good. I enjoyed it because it was the lead-in to Impact Against All Odds, because the main event for Against All Odds was going to be filmed, live in Bally's place, where AEW calls home. So, Kenny Omega again speaking about Moose and Sammy Callahan, and it really was a great lead-in, even though it's not their pay-per-view. AEW did a great job of leading into Impact's pay-per-view Against All Odds. Final note on the quick hits: Samoa Joe makes his return to NXT tonight. Joe was released a couple of weeks back, along with Lana and Aleister Black, Santana Garrett. And Samoa Joe is back as an enforcer for William Regal, sort of a GM role, but apparently he can't touch anybody unless he's provoked, sort of like Stone Cold Steve Austin used to do back in the day. I'm liking it. I didn't watch all of NXT yet. It is Tuesday night when I record, guys. This will air on Thursday, but I wanted to save NXT. But from what I saw and seeing that Samoa Joe is back and on the NXT brand makes me think that Triple H is finally grabbing the bull by the horns and telling Vince McMahon, look, you're taking all these people away from me when you call guys up to the main roster, and then you turn around and you shit on them. So I'm going to do everything I can to bring these guys back to NXT, even if it means me re-signing them to the brand only. He brought Finn Balor back. He brought Ember Moon back. I'd like him to bring back a couple other people who are on the main roster right now that are not flourishing and could use to be back on NXT. Like, even though Nikki Cross is beating Charlotte Flair in 2-minute matches and by count out, and she beat Rhea Ripley in that 2-minute BS, I think Nikki Cross could flourish in NXT very much so. But it's good to see Samoa Joe back, and nice to see that the WWE did not squander him by letting him go. There's news that he was talking to AEW, and Triple H kind of said, nope, not going to happen. And I guess that's their way of saying, hey, maybe AEW is a threat. But it's good that Triple H grabbed Samoa Joe back and brought him back to the old brand of the WWE. So we move on to our first of two pay-per-views, and it is Impact Against All Odds. It was this Saturday, and I was looking forward to it because the amount of matches that seemed so stacked. You got Kojima in a match with Joe Doring, who has wrestled in Japan before. We got Sammy Callahan and Tommy Dreamer teaming up for the first time. And then the main event, Kenny Omega versus Moose. So I was gung-ho. And I put this thing on. Callahan and Dreamer taking on the Good Brothers. This was an established tag team taking on the odd couple of wrestling. But it was good. It wasn't any of that weird crap where, like, oh, I don't get along with you, so I'm going to leave you to hang out to dry. No, Callahan and Dreamer worked together. They got in some great offense. Dreamer still is innovative as hell in that ring. Callahan is sadistic, and it's nothing new for me to these guys. The Good Brothers, Galloways and Anderson, tried to cut off the ring, but Callahan was just a wild card and all over the place and would not allow it to happen. Sammy and Tommy get the win at the 20-minute mark. Really good way to open up the show, in my opinion. But that makes me wonder, because Impact is filmed in Florida, as is AEW. I don't know how far it is from the arena that they were in for Against All Odds was at from Dali's place, but it makes me question whether the Good Brothers or Callahan will show up at Dali's place for the main event. We'll have to wait and see. We then get Kojima versus Joey Doring, and this was strong style personified between these two guys. They just both gave each other every shot they could. Doring is an absolute monster, and I know I say that here and there about some people, but Doring is as badass as they come. Kojima, if you've never seen him in New Japan, teaming with Tenzan, going after the never open weight belt on his own, the guy is just hard hitting. Um, and that's all they did here was hit each other with big moves and forearm shots, and it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We had Eddie Edwards on the out at ringside for Kojima, and we had Violent by Design, uh, Eric Young, and Rhino outside for Joey Doring. Rhino got involved immensely. At one point, he tried to take Kojima out with an Irish whip. Kojima reversed it, got back in the ring, and then ate a massive power bomb from Joe Doring. Doring picks up the win at the 15-minute mark. Again, good match, really good match here. And then it was time for the stars of the X division. We have Ace Austin, Chris Bay, Rohit Raju, Petey Williams, and Trey Miguel in a fatal five-way where the winner is going to be named the number one contender to Josh Alexander's X Division championship. And it's what you expect from an X Division match. Petey Williams, who is a pioneer of the X Division and has the most experience in Impact, proved it here. He did a top rope avalanche Canadian Destroyer, which looked badass watching it live. I've seen it, he's done it before, but I've always watched the tape live. It needs an audience, though, because you want to hear that oh shit from the crowd, but it was absolutely great. Ace Austin is a true chicken shit heel. He runs around the ring. He stays on the outside. He does his best not to get involved, and he strikes when the iron is hot. Good on him. I like it. He sticks to his character, and I like Ace Austin, and I think he could be a major player. Chris Bay and Rohit have been kind of on the outside and battling each other, and then having a fight with TJP and Suicide, who's the same person, or maybe he isn't. They're a little more comical, but when they're in a match like this, they can get the job done as well. And then Trey Miguel has been going out of his way to prove why he did not go with his other former Rascal teammates to the WWE NXT brand. And Trey is doing that. He's delivered since he's been back. High flying shots to his opponents, all of them, every one of them. He hit everybody as much as he could off that top rope and middle rope. And then Trey put on a spinning toe hold, and Petey Williams put on a sharpshooter. They had Austin and Chris Bay down and out, like they were both gonna, eventually submit. Who was gonna submit? Rohit breaks it up, and it just they went on in a really good way here for about a good 25 minutes, which is what you want from an X Division match. But then out comes Madman Fulton. He attacks one of the X Division wrestlers. I believe I have it written down here. It was Petey Williams, stops the count, and then the referee decides no contest, match over. They don't have disqualifications or no contest in three-way matches, triple threat, three-way dances. Why would you have it in a five-way? And why would you ruin this match like this and have this guy come out and end the match like that? If you're trying to find a number one contender and you think all five of these guys deserve a shot, then start doing the AEW point system, where matches matter, and show us the top five of them, and then each of them can have a shot as Josh Alexander goes down the list. But a great 25-minute match gets blown by, Madman Fulton, who had no business being out there except to save Ace Austin, who really didn't need it. and just bad booking. The Slammiversary commercial is excellent, and it's got me hyped. We know it's not Samoa Joe going to back to Impact, but could it be Daniel Bryan? Could it be the Iconics? I hope not. Could one of the cast-offs make their way into Impact like Matt Cordona and Brian Myers did? Eric Young went back. You never know. And if it's Daniel Bryan, I'm all for it. I hope it is. We then go to W. Morrissey versus Rich Swann. Big Cass looks jacked, and I'm glad he cleaned himself up to get back into the ring and get to Impact Wrestling. And I've always been a Rich Swann fan, but this match, it's very contrasting. You've got that David versus Goliath feel, but Morrissey is just all over Swann. Swann keeps trying to fight back and get in kicks and shots, but the bigger man barely goes down. And then, Morrissey hits him again, brings him back down. It was just a little bit of a clusterfuck for two guys. Rich Swann finally makes a comeback, and he hits a Falcon's Arrow on a downed W. Morrissey from the top rope all the way to the floor. Amazing. Amazing height for Rich Swann. Then, you know, Morrissey gets back up, and Swann lands him with a kick, and he just starts rolling around like a doofus. It's like, I understand you're selling the move, but you don't have to sell it like you're this big clumsy oaf. That's just my feelings, though. But the match itself was a little bit messy again. They're going back and forth. Morrissey isn't selling as much as he should be. Swann is, on the other hand. And then a huge double power bomb, and Rich Swann, who is down and out. Morrissey's looking at him like, "Can you still go? Are you done?" He flips over. He flips off Morrissey. Morrissey gets pissed, lifts him back up, hits another power bomb, picks up the win in 15 minutes. This isn't like Rey Mysterio going against Kevin Nash, or a smaller guy going against a bigger guy in normal sense. These guys kind of did it a little weirder, and it didn't get put out the right way. But I hope that they both move on. Morrissey gets a better feud, and Swann gets back to maybe challenging for the world title. We hear from the Knockouts champ, Deonna Purrazzo, and her crew, but all I can think of is, why did they ruin Su Yung? Why is she Susan now and being a Karen, complaining about everything going on? A little weird, but Deonna Purrazzo will face Rosemary later on. But now we get Tennille Dashwood versus Jordan Grace, and I'm not a fan of either one of these women. Sorry, but I'm tired of Tennille, who pops up into every company for a month and then goes missing. She did it in Ring of Honor. She did it in Impact. There was even talks of her possibly going to AEW, but she didn't. It's just weird. If she doesn't want to be a full-time wrestler, then maybe she needs to be done wrestling altogether. On the other hand, we've got Jordan Grace, who is just clumsy. I'm sorry, but she is. Every move that she does looks like she's about to fall down or she's about to kill her opponent. And we got enough of those murderess type women in wrestling with Nia Jax and Nyla Rose, who are hurting the divisions. In any case, back-to-back power slams from Jordan Grace at one point, and the way she was dropping Tennille Dashwood made it look like she was going to kill this young lady. Grace fixed her knee pad a dozen times in this match every time she was down, which to me signals I'm not selling. If you're knocked out because somebody landed a crazy suplex on you, the last thing I want to see is you fixing your knee pad. I'm sorry. Rachel Ellering comes out because she's Jordan Grace's tag team partner. They were tag champs for all of 2 minutes, and she gets distracted. She tried to help Jordan by getting Tennille's boyfriend off the apron. Tennille gets Jordan in a roll-up because of the distraction, and she picks up the win in 10 minutes. But it felt like an eternity. And now Jordan Grace is throwing a tantrum. This is absolutely fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. Go out of your way to watch this pay-per-view if you didn't. No. Fast forward. Fast forward now. Brian Myers is teaching some young kid, and now he's about to be murdered by Jake something. No, he walked away. Okay. So now we get Susan and Kimberly versus Fire and Flava. So it's Deanna's friends taking on the I Want to Be Sasha Banks Hogan and the girl who didn't last 2 weeks in the NWA. Yeah, I'm not. It was an okay match on the side of Fire and Flavor, but Kimberly and Susan just aren't working. It's really bad. It was a 10-minute match that ended with a frog splash from Styles. Fire and Flavor get the win, and they retain their women's tag team titles. Yeah. Moving on, we've got DK versus VBD. That's Violent by Design, and I like both of these teams. Very evenly matched. Crazy Steve and Diener trade some arm drags and shots to start us off. We see Tarus and Rhino lock up for a minute, but then Tarus tags back in Crazy Steve. Rhino just manhandles Steve. In comes Diener. Diener and Steve continue to trade shots, and it just seems like Steve always seems to be getting the better end of it when he's going up against Diener. Tarus comes back in and a senton by Crazy Steve, and it's only a 2. Rhino breaks up the pin, and Tarus is now down on ringside, leaving Steve all alone. Eric Young hits Steve from behind, and BBD get the win in the 13-minute mark. Good match. Decent, good tag team match. And then we go to Rosemary and Deanna Perrazzo for the would force Rosemary down every time she tried to mount a comeback. Deanna would force her back down with one of those joint manipulation moves, which they hurt. I don't know. Maybe it's fake, maybe it's not, but I'm sure it hurts somewhere. Because if I have somebody cranking on my knee and pulling it in 4 different directions, I'm going to scream. Uh, Rosemary finally fights back, though, and the women trade submissions. Incredible switch from side Russian leg sweep to her submission move, the Venus de Milo by Deanna Perrazzo. But Rosemary fought out. Deanna began working over the surgically repaired knee of Rosemary, and it got her the win because when Rosemary went for the red wedding, her knee buckled, and Deanna hit her with a pile driver to get the win at the 17-minute mark. And we get a good highlight package of Moose versus Omega after this. And I wonder again if the Good Brothers or Sammy Callahan might show up to end out the show. You never know here. And this matchup starts with it's again that David and Goliath feel because Moose is so much bigger, but Kenny is actually the one that's putting Moose down. And Moose isn't selling it clumsy. No, Moose is actually selling like he's supposed to. Um, the V trigger on Moose from Omega was stellar. It allowed Kenny to get in some offense, but the rest of the match from then out was just Moose overpowering Kenny and Don Callis overdoing it on the mic. I am not a Don Callis fan, and I never will be. I did not like him as the Jackal. I didn't like him as Cyrus the Virus, and I definitely don't want to see him on Impact and AEW, but I digress. The referee takes a bump, and the Young Bucks come out and help Kenny. After the referee bump, and Kenny finally, gets Moose up in the 1 Weekend Angel, which took 3 men, puts Moose down, gets the 1, 2, 3 in about 20 minutes. This was just an okay main event. It wasn't anything special, like they were, calling it out to be. They were making it seem like this was a blockbuster match, and I like both guys, but they really needed to pull it back a little and make it a slower burn. I would like this match to get like 35 minutes. That's all I'm saying. Um, After the match, Sammy Callahan comes to the ring. The arena goes dark. There's Sammy sitting on the, on the ring apron. He gets in the ring, takes Kenny out. The Young Bucks are nowhere in sight. And before he gets a chance to take Kenny Omega out en route to their Slammiversary match that they'll be having, Don Callis gets on the mic and begins screeching, trying to stop Sammy Callahan. And before Sammy takes his foot and drives it through a chair connected to Kenny Omega's leg, Don Callis fires Sammy Callahan from Impact Wrestling. Now, Scott D'Amore was also on commentary. and I believe Scott is a higher up than Don Callis. So I'm sure this is reversed, or they'll say like, well, "How do you fire somebody on a different show? You were in the AEW arena. You can't fire him in AEW, whatever." I know can't Sammy will not be fired for long, but whatever the case, it added to end the show to see those two going at it. Bravo though to Impact. They did a great job. A couple of matches that you may want to miss if you haven't watched this yet, but there are definitely a few that you need to go ahead, as I said, and seek out and watch them. And now we come to NXT Takeover in Your House. I love the In Your House theme. Scott Todd Pettingale was amazing, acting like this old, bewildered man who didn't know how to do certain things in the new age all night long. And our opening match is MSK and Bronson Reed taking on Legado del Fantasma, and that is Escobar uh, and his crew. I always, it's Joaquin Wild and Raul Mendoza. I always mess up their names, but this was a 20-minute masterpiece for an opener. I loved seeing all six men working in this match. Mendoza and Wild deserve another regular tag team title shot, and Escobar versus Reed needs to continue after this match. Barricade spot with Reed putting Escobar through it was phenomenal, and it was brutal. And then a 3-on-1 to end the match with the MSK hitting their finisher, Bronson Reed coming off the top with that amazing splash for a man his size was great. MSK gets the win in 20 minutes. Great way to open the show. We then go Mercedes Martinez versus Zaya Lee, and this is a hard hitting match between two women who want to make a move up the list of contenders, so to speak. Zaya Lee is looking for revenge from the Mae Young Classic, and Martinez is looking at her record. And after about 10 minutes of just a hellish back and forth matchup, both women throwing shots, at each other's heads the whole time, Zia Lee finally got her wish and picked up a solid win in a really good match. The aftermath was Martinez using the chair on Zia Lee, and then the ring girl, I don't know her name. I know they said it, but Zia Lee's master grabbing and destroying Martinez was great and left me wanting more. Very interesting. The match for me that stole the show is our next match, and that is the ladder match for the $1 million title between LA Knight and Cameron Grimes. Knight and Grimes put their bodies on the line and both wanted to be called the new $1 million champion. Grimes bounced and jumped off of everything in the arena, including a splash off the ringside scaffold, which looked great. But Knight proved that he was more ruthless and wanted it more because after 20 minutes, at the 20-minute mark, Knight sent Grimes through a hard ladder, crashing straight through it, and grabbed the MDT title from the top, much to the happiness of $1 million man Ted DiBiase. So you have to wonder if DiBiase was pulling more for Knight than he was for Grimes. Great match, and in my opinion, for that 20 minutes, those two young men stole the show. Two guys that were in Impact Wrestling, two guys that held gold in Impact, are now, in my opinion, at that almost upper echelon of NXT. We then go to Raquel Diaz versus Ember Moon. Both women came out and to show off, and both women did just that. Moon wanted to prove that she could still challenge for the title. She did. But Diaz wanted to prove, Gonzalez. I keep calling her Raquel Diaz. Her name is Raquel Gonzalez. My bad. Gonzalez wanted to prove that she is a worthy champion, and she is. She took everything Moon had, including an eclipse, and she still stood up. Shotzi Blackheart came out to try to fend off Dakota Kai. Great to see Shotzi back. Gonzalez counters an eclipse and finishes off Moon in a 17-minute mark of the match. Very good women's match. When NXT lost women like Ember Moon the first time, and Asuka, Rhea Ripley, Kira, Kerry Sane. They've lost all these women throughout the years, and everybody gets worried every time there's a call up, and one of the men or the women get called up to the main roster. Who's going to fill their spot? Who's going to do something? Who's going to do this? Fear not. The NXT roster is deep, and whenever somebody else leaves, somebody else moves into their place. I promise you, if you are a diehard NXT fan like I am, there's always going to be somebody to fill the spot. It's like cutting the head off of a three-headed snake. There's always going to be another one to pop back up. You're fine. NXT continues to flourish, and this women's match showed it. One of the divisions, though, which is flourishing big time and has four major contenders, is the NXT World Heavyweight title. And it is time for our main event. Karrion Kross versus Adam Cole versus Pete Dunne versus Johnny Gargano versus Kyle O'Reilly. Now, sometimes a multi-man match can be predictable, and it could end up turning into a clusterfuck where you just go, okay, what? It's just two guys in the ring and there's three people down on the floor. This was not that. Right from the get-go, we had Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole on the outside, Kyle O'Reilly and Pete Dunne on the inside. And when Dunne dumped O'Reilly to the floor, you had Karrion Kross there to pick up Dunne and go at it with him. Gargano was once again Johnny Takeover, in my opinion, and Cole was everything he says he is. The double team powerbomb by Cole and O'Reilly to Kross through the table, and the double super kick to an upside down Pete Dunne, who was trying to achieve a moonsault, was unfreaking believable. These five men proved that NXT has no worries when it comes to their main events. Because if you take any of those two men out of the five and make a main event out of it, you're going to get a classic. Now, it may not be a Dave Meltzer 5-star classic. Fuck you, Dave. No, but it is going to be a classic match that you are going to cheer and enjoy no matter who you like in the match. That's what I saw here. Match finally broke down, and in the end, Karrion Kross proved why he is a worthy champion and put Kyle O'Reilly to sleep for the win and to retain his NXT World Heavyweight title at the 30-minute mark. Incredible show from top to bottom. Now, if I had to rate both both against all odds and in your house, I would rate Impact against all odds a 3.5. It's passable as a pay-per-view. There were a couple of matches that could have been just on Impact, or even before Impact, that that show they have on YouTube. But 3.5, in my opinion, is passable. And if you do want to see it, if you haven't watched it yet, by all means, go right ahead and check it out. On the NXT side of things, I give them a 5 out of 5. And I know I always bolster and I always gleam and I always gush over NXT. But if any of you listeners want to get me on the WrestleNet Radio Facebook page or the We Can't Wrestle Facebook page, or if you're a Facebook follower and you want to PM me and show me where there is a hole in the NXT roster and where you feel they are lacking, I will gladly invite you on this show and I will allow you and I to debate friendly about what it is you're talking about. I don't see a hole anywhere. Do they have a couple of shows where they're not firing on all cylinders? Yes, every wrestling show has that. But they will always get a 3.5 or above from me if they continue to put on shows like just my 2 cents, though, and just my opinion. Now, I did a lot of spewing and hatred when I was speaking about Impact against all odds. So we are going to forego our normal grinds my gears segment this week. And I'm sorry to anyone who enjoys it or anyone who comes here strictly to listen to it. But I promise I'll be back next week with the grinds my gear. Truth of the matter is, there was really nothing that bad going on in wrestling. Raw sucked as usual, and we haven't got to SmackDown yet. But there was really nothing that bad to talk about. So next week we'll gear up, and I promise you, grinds my gears. We'll be back in full effect. So thank you for joining me as always. If you are not a member of the We Can't Wrestle Facebook group or the WrestleNet Radio Facebook group, please go out and support us. Get those numbers up. Tell your friends about WrestleNet Radio and bring them here to listen, because I'm joking when I say I'm the highest rated show on WrestleNet Radio. I like I like to boast. I'm an egomaniac, but we have great shows. We have more content that we're going to be adding, and I promise you, you will be a fan of something we have to deliver. So, as always, thank you for joining me. Have a great night, and I'll see you next week on If You Can Smell what the Arch is cooking.